Well, one of the things in the budget was an announcement of $16.5 billion in infrastructure projects over the next 10 years. Now, look, a lot of talk about housing and getting the three levels of government to work together, etc., to create more housing supply. But how is it actually working on the ground? Matthew Death is chair of the National Growth Areas Alliance and joins us on the line now. Matthew, good morning.
Morning, Stephen.
The $16.5 billion sounds like a lot of money, but when you say that it's over 10 years, how does this actually enhance the collaboration between the three levels of government? Because largely, in order for the government to reach any of its housing targets, all three levels of government do need to work together and be on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. You're 100% correct there. And look, while it's welcome that we're seeing investment in infrastructure, and Minister King coming out and doing the work around the review of the infrastructure pipeline to make sure that it's transparent and really clear what it's trying to achieve. The challenge that we've got is just getting the alignment with the priorities of government, which is making sure that we've got a strong housing supply coming online. And I think that's part of the challenge that we've got is that the state governments seem to be on a very different pathway to the federal government when it comes to that level of alignment. Growth areas and what we're talking about with the growth area is, places on the fringes of our metropolitan cities that are greenfield developments that experience high levels of growth. They could be at any point of their journey, when it comes to what that growth looks like. But generally are defined by a real lack of infrastructure. It's the hospitals that are yet to be built. It's the train lines that are yet to be built, and the freeways that are promised that they're coming but are still yet to be delivered. So what we're really looking for, and what we were hoping was in this budget, was the devil in the detail, which was how are they planning to work with us to deliver this? I guess from our perspective, we're not the problem. Growth areas have been doing this for decades, and we're really good at delivering housing. We've got the pipeline, councils have got on. It's business as usual for us, and we know that we can scale up and be part of the solution here. So I guess the challenge that we've got is getting the state and the federal governments to see that we are the solution and that we can be part of how we fix this. The issue is just getting the alignment with the delivery of infrastructure.
Well, I want to talk about the other aspect. And one of the things that my observation of local government and their role in this over many, many years is that there seems to be a high level of inefficiency when it comes to actually approving, building approvals and approvals of subdivisions, etc. Now, a lot of that would come down to resourcing. Does any of this address that?
Yeah, look, I think that that Minister King has come out with a program that is helping to address that. There is a pot of money that is looking at how do we improve the planning approvals process, or the work that's required to unlock the housing supply from a planning perspective, which is incredibly welcome. But for growth areas, that's not the problem. It's not growth areas, and I think that this is part of the challenge is that when we talk about local government, you lump all local governments in the one basket together, where that's not necessarily the case. Our metropolitan counterparts and inner city counterparts, they certainly have some challenges around approval times. But in growth areas, because we've been doing it for so long, approvals for subdivisions is, what we do every day. So growth areas are not necessarily the problem, and if you look at the statistics, and I'm just thinking around my area in Sydney, in fact, those that have had the highest DA turnaround time, the fastest DA turnaround times are those in growth areas. So I think it's a fallacy to think that that the growth areas and those council areas are the ones that are dragging the chain here. We're not.
Well, my brother's actually building in your council area at the moment, and it took an inordinate amount of time to get the land registered. But there are other areas. Let's talk about particularly in your council area, but in others as well. The problem I see too is that local government seems to be lumped with a lot of jobs that they're not particularly well suited to. And that's not the fault of local government, but things like connecting sewerage and water and these kind of things. Is there enough being done at a federal? Because, I mean, the government talks a big game about building houses, but the federal government's not going to build a single house, and nor should they. It's not their job to do that. But it's all well and good to allocate funding, but is it going to the right areas to make sure that you can get the parts of infrastructure that you're involved with? Because, I mean, you're not going to build roads and, large-scale roads and rail and those kind of things. But when it comes to that smaller level infrastructure that you are responsible for, are you getting enough through the pipeline for that?
Yeah, look, the short answer is no. And that's part of the challenge, and what we've been advocating for is to really allow us to get on with the job with delivering the infrastructure. We do need a significant amount of investment in those critical, key pieces of infrastructure that do unlock those things. So, for instance, when we're talking about, across here in Sydney, one of the critical things that I hear from all the councils in our growth areas out here is the provision of sewer and water. Something as simple as that, as being able to flush the toilet, is something that is not necessarily guaranteed when we're trying to put on a greenfield development out here. So in Wilton alone, we are trucking out. So Wilton is, 80k southwest of Sydney, a new greenfield development. And the solution right now, which is how we're solving the sewer problem, is we are actually trucking it out of the development. And that's going to continue for quite a number of years to come, until a final solution is placed. And that is a great example of, if the planning at a state level had been done properly, and there was a level of investment from the feds to unlock that and to make that planning a reality, we wouldn't have this problem now where effectively Sydney Water have said there will be no more housing delivered in Wilton above a certain amount for the foreseeable future, which is ludicrous when we're in a housing crisis, that we're in that situation.
Yeah, and particularly if you try to, I imagine it's going to be a lot less cost effective to try and put sewage in after you've developed a greenfield site than it is beforehand. So
absolutely. So we're scrambling now to look at what are the solutions that we could bring. We could fix this problem, whereas, we could have been much better at the planning side of things from a state level, and then also the investment side from a federal level as well. So, that example is not uncommon right across all of our growth areas in Australia, where we're seeing the missing link that is the road that connects the residential development to the employment zone lands is completely missing. So people actually end up taking it, over in Playford in South Australia, where it takes it's faster to get into the city than the employment lands that are only 2 k's away from their residential development, because of the missing link.
So, Matthew, how do we address this? Because we have this concept of, they call it National Cabinet, or the old Commonwealth, the COAG meetings as we used to have. So the feds and the state governments do sit down and talk on a regular basis, but don't seem to be able to communicate even when they're in their own room. Local government doesn't really have a seat at that table. How do you believe we should be able to facilitate the cooperation between governments to to fix some of these problems?
Yeah, look, I agree with you that local government does need to be part of the solution here. I think we have the opportunity. We have some of the solutions and the ideas. It does require federal leadership when it comes to this, and not only in getting local government to the table, but then also ensuring that they are part of the solution in terms of how these programs are implemented. I mean, we've got the know-how. We know how to solve this. We're on the ground doing this day in, day out. So there is I think to ignore us is at your own peril, because I think we've got a way forward that will able to unlock that housing supply really quickly in ways that is actually going to be a meaningful benefit to the communities that we're trying to serve. Matthew, appreciate your time this morning. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Stephen. Matthew Death is the chair of the National Growth Areas Alliance. He's also the mayor of Wallandilly Shire Council on the outskirts of Sydney.